Hi everyone, welcome to today's 30 on Thursday, where we will be talking about changing your look, creating a custom design gallery theme in SharePoint 2013. If this is your first time joining us, our 30 on Thursday webinar series is a bi-weekly 30-minute SharePoint webinar series where we talk about hot topics, best practices, and hot products with Microsoft SharePoint. Our next webinar will be SharePoint Audit, Identifying Risks and Maximizing Opportunities in SharePoint, and that will be on March 26th. You can see our full schedule of our webinars on our website, sharepoint.protiviti.com/webinars. We will be doing live tweeting today during the webinar. Please tweet us your questions and your feedback at ProtivitiSP and use the hashtag 30TDesign. Today's session is being recorded. You can view this recording and an archive of all of our past sessions at sharepoint.protiviti.com/archivedwebinars. For questions today during the presentation, please use the question window in the GoToMeeting toolbar or tweet us your questions again at ProtivitiSP using the hashtag 30TDesign. We'll get to all the questions after the presentation. So today's topic again is changing your look, creating a custom design gallery theme in SharePoint 2013. Our presenter today is Brittany Kwait with Protiviti, and I am Julia Marple, and I will be moderating today's session. So let's get started. Brittany, I'm going to make you presenter. You can take it from there.
All right. Are we good? Can you see?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. I'm a couple slides behind. And here we go. Thanks everyone for joining today, first thing in the afternoon or during your lunch break or even before that, depending on where you're coming in. I'm glad you could join us. If any of you have been in one of my previous 30 on Thursdays, you know we're going to get all busy and cram lots and lots of good stuff into this session. So bear with me and let's start designing. So what are we going to do today? We're going to get a little bit creative. We're going to think about design, web design, and be able to create something that's custom in SharePoint, what's known as a composed look. And we're not going to use code, always a plus. And something that we've been talking about for a long time with SharePoint, and we see that less and less now with SharePoint Designer not having the design view, that we can still create custom looks and be able to preview them without having to write any code. And as always, just some really good SharePoint things. So even if this isn't exactly what it is that you're looking for, hopefully you'll pick up a few tips for some good SharePoint practices that will extend into other solutions that you might want to build on the product. Why are we doing this? If anyone has looked at SharePoint 2013, there are a number of themes that come pre-installed, some of which are very basic. You can change the color from blue to orange or to pink or to lime green. But there's also some curious ones out there, including one that is full of sea monsters. There's one that has rings of Saturn, and to this day I haven't seen any client using those themes, and I don't anticipate that I will. The sea monsters, I don't have that exact one up here now, but I do have a background from Microsoft. This is one that I have on my Windows phone, and it's similar. It has some sea monsters, and it's fun for my personal device, but I'm not sure that it's going to fit in with my corporate environment, unfortunately. So what is it that we need to get rid of the sea monsters? First, you'll need at least design access to a site collection. Now, eventually, we won't need the publishing features, but for the purposes of designing this, we will need the publishing features enabled. So design access or owner access will be perfect for you to create your own theme. Second, you need to have an idea that isn't going to be, let's say, revolutionary, that's not going to be more on the website side. It doesn't have to look like SharePoint at the end, but it will still look a little bit SharePoint-y. This is what makes it different from, let's say, doing a complete custom design where you might have a front-end developer do a lot of the work and then you're using a lot of code. With this solution, we are going to build on top of what SharePoint provides for us. So our designs are not going to be quite as revolutionary as they would be if we were to do something on our own. It's good to have Word available. This is optional, but you'll see that I'll use it. It's good for discovery, and it's good for kind of sleuthing on other designs to find out exactly what color or fonts it is that we want to include. And the irony alert here for the design access. The irony is, that publishing does not allow you to create sites as templates. So where themes are really useful is when we want to create multiple sites and subsites that all have the same look and feel. In order to create a theme, we need to have publishing turned on. But in order to use the theme consistently, it's better, we can't have publishing turned on because we need to embed the theme in our template. And we can't create templates if we have publishing. So what we'll need to do here is to turn publishing on, create our theme, then turn publishing off and save it as a template. Maybe not the most logical thing, but that's how it works. And that was actually how I kind of found out about this method when I was trying to save a site as a template to save my theme, and then found out that that wouldn't work because it's not supported. What is a composed look? Composed look is made up of 4 components. Now, I kind of cheated. There's multiple components that I've bundled in with some of these other components, but I think they're related enough that I can get away with this one. So a composed look, which I'll keep using interchangeably with the word theme, to me that's just a SharePoint word for theme, is made up of these 4 components. The first is your master page. SharePoint by default comes with 3 master pages, 2 of which are used in the themes. One is called Seattle, one is called Oslo, and the other is just a minimal starter master page that you can use to create your own master pages. Now, as part of a master page, it is linked to a CSS file. So SharePoint has a core version 15 CSS file that it uses for both of those master pages. When you create your own master page, you can create your own CSS file. And the CSS will determine the colors and the styles and the page layouts of your components within the master page. So you can create your own custom master page here, or you can use one of the SharePoint ones. Also, you'll need a preview file, and I will talk more about that later. Next, we'll move to images. Images are optional, but they are recommended, and images can be in one of 2 categories or both. The first would be the logo that you want to use within your composed look, and the second is if you want a background image. So thinking again about the sea monsters, the sea monster theme has sea monsters in the background, and you can create your own images there, and I'll show you that. Next are fonts. So you can customize the fonts that are available and display for things like your navigation, your headers, and all of your text on the page. And the fourth, and the part that we'll focus on most today, is the color palette. And the color palette is going to be everything from the navigation to the font color, hyperlink color, any text or images or backgrounds that display on the page. You'll be able to create your own palette of how those should display. I'm going to switch over to this one. So what do I mean by a composed look and those different components? When you first create a team site, you are getting these Get Started tiles, and you have one here that says, what's your style, with a palette in the background. And when you click that, you're brought to this Change the Look screen. And here you can see the predefined looks that are packaged with SharePoint 2013. So here's one that looks almost like the current one, except it's orange. Here's one that's green. And here's the sea monster theme. You can see there's some octopus thing in the background over there. Here's one that has the flower. Here's one with more of a kind of confetti design. And you can see that there are two different styles of the page. Here's the Saturn rings one. So when I talk about images, one of the images that you can select are the images that will appear in the background, or you can elect not to have an image if you prefer not to. So first, we're going to look at the color palette tool. This is something that you can download. It's been around since 2012, and it's version 1.0000000. They haven't done anything to it, unfortunately. It does what it does, and I imagine that's all that it's ever going to do. But it is useful. You do not need the SharePoint color palette tool, so I did not put it in the list of prerequisites. But it is very helpful, especially if you're much more of a visual person and you want to be able to see your changes as you go along. I recommend that you download this. It's free, it's very small, and the link is provided for you here in the deck. Some of the other bullet points that are on here refer to, as you'll see when I open it, the items that you're most likely to change. So there are a lot of options available in the color palette tool. Lots of different classes within the CSS that we can assign a color code to, or certain hex values. But more often than not, you're only going to focus on a few of these, and I call them out because they are a little bit difficult to find. So now we will start by loading our color palette tool. So this is it. When you open it up, you get a standard SharePoint site, and you can see the default view with the blue and the general master page that we're using. Now in the right here, you can see in small it says Oslo. You can also pull up the other master page, which is Seattle. So not much difference when you're looking at the two of these, but if you look at the default SharePoint themes, those which have a background image are using the Oslo theme. This is actually a transparent overlay, which is the white area that you see. When you switch to Seattle, you get this quick launch menu and also a opaque background. So for the purposes of today, I'm not going to change the layout. I'm not going to add a custom layout. I'm just going to use the Seattle one here. And for inspiration, I am going to use the Protiviti website. So I'm not trying to recreate the Protiviti website, but I want to reflect the company's color scheme in my new color palette. So I'll just have both of these sites ready over here, good to go. Okay, so referring back to the presentation, you can see, looking over here, it's not very helpful to understand which one of these colors represents which one of these shapes on the right. In fact, it's a lot of trial and error, which is why I tried to help you out and provide you some of those codes. There are some different ways that you can look at these values. The default color buckets, which I don't understand, and so I don't use that one. I prefer to use the UI groups. This is the one that makes the most amount of sense, which is not to say it makes a lot of sense, but more than the other two, and this is the one that's reflected in the PowerPoint. So the first one I'm going to change is the background color. So I'm going to pick this selection background, and then to change the color, and the selection background is going to be this shade here. I'm going to select the box and then the eyedropper, and then you have to hold the mouse down, and now I'm going to go over to my site here. I need to get this the way. Take the eyedropper, and I'm going to select, let me swap these around because I want some of the colors that are in this, like this light blue here. because I think this one would be way too dark. So I'll select the box, take the color, and get this light blue. Or maybe even this light blue down here. That's good. Okay, next I'm going to pick 3 and the row accent. And for this one, I'm going to pick, let's see, maybe kind of a brownish color. We'll just pick this gray. That's fine. So you can see the color represented here in the box. Next, I'm going to do the emphasis background. And for this one, I'm just going to make a color. I'm going to do like a manila. So if you know the hex value, you can certainly add that in yourself. Maybe that's good. Okay. So I can go through here and continue to change the different colors so that I get this representing the way that I like. What's nice about this is it does update in real time, so you can see the color and see how they all blend together. Another option that you have with this, which is nice, is I can select, let's say, this emphasis color and get my eyedropper again and pick the Protiviti bluish gray, say OK, and then recolor. And what that will do is use some Microsoft Magic to distribute the colors according to the one that I've just picked. So if you don't want to go through and update every single color, which I'm sure is not something that you're keen on doing, you can use that recolor to help fill in those blanks for the ones that are not going to be as noticeable, and it will keep them in line with the theme. And generally it does a pretty nice job, but you will want to go through and just check for anything that doesn't look quite right or that might be a few shades off, and then adjust those accordingly. So that's a quick way if you have only a few colors and you only want to update a few of the, let's say, the emphasis or the line accent, to be able to get started quickly with your custom theme that matches the colors that you want to use. Now, I do have a theme based on the Protiviti one that I've already used. So here you can see the Protiviti blue, light blue, and a dark blue, and this is what I'm going to use as my theme. Now, I'm not going to say that this site is exactly the way that mine's going to look. I'm only focused on the colors here, and these are the colors that I'm going to be using. So to go back to my SharePoint site, now, how do I go about uploading one of my items, like say my colors or my master page, to create this new theme? So to do that, we go to the gear and site settings. Remember, you need to have publishing turned on. And you have an option under Web Designer Galleries which says Compose Looks, and this will bring you to a list where you can see the breakdown of each one of these different themes that you've worked on. So I have the name of the theme. These are all available within SharePoint already. The master page URL, the theme URL. So the theme URL is looking at this SP color file, which is what I generate from the SP color tool. So when I go to save something, it will save as an SP color file, and that's what I need from my palette. Next, I have an image URL. So you'll see that quite a few of these are blank. It's not required to have an image. If you want one in the background, you can use it here. And fonts. So I've done the color already, so I'm good there. Next, I need a font. For the fonts, there's no special tool you can download. You will need to use a web editor. You can use SharePoint Designer or just Notepad, whatever you like. This is where I like to use Word to help view the different fonts. You won't be able to use Word to edit the document. But what I recommend is that you take one of these SP font files and then open it. So I'm using Sublime, which is a text editor here, to be able to just look at the XML. And you'll see that a lot of this I just leave alone because it's for representing glyphs that are in different alphabets, which may or may not apply to you, and you might want to change these. But for the most part, I assume that these are the fonts that are best to be used, and so I just leave those alone. What we're really focused on is anywhere that it says Latin typeface for our English letters, and then we're able to see within the font file which font will be representing which category. So the one I started with is Font Scheme 2, and with Font Scheme 2 everything was given to me in the font of Georgia. Now if you're not familiar with the different fonts or you're not sure what you want to do, this is where Word is very helpful. So I can go back to the Protiviti site. I don't know what this font is that Protiviti is using, but since I'm creating a Protiviti theme, I should probably use the Protiviti font. So I can just copy some different text. Doesn't really matter what it is. I don't want to get, actually let me do over here so I don't get the image. And then you can go to your Word, paste your text in, and then it'll tell me up here the font that I'm using. So it's Verdana. So I want at least the text, the body text, to be Verdana, the same as it is for the corporate. Another great thing you can do with Word is come up with some different color schemes. So there are many of these that are in Word or generally in Office already, and they're quite good. So you're free to copy one of these different color schemes if you see something pretty similar, and then use that as your SP color file, and then just insert those different colors where you need them to go. But for the fonts, it's a really great way to kind of copy it in and see what's going on. Another thing I'd say about the fonts, though, is that you need to make sure that your fonts are web safe. So not every font that I have here in Word is necessarily going to be available online. Many of them will be, many of them will not. So just be careful that you test that out to make sure that those fonts are going to be available through the browser. But I'm pretty sure that Verdana is a well-known font, so I'm going to go ahead and work with that one. So I created my own font theme, and I've used a combination of Century Gothic, which is a sans serif modern font, Rockwell, which is kind of a fun serif Western feeling font for some of the navigational elements, and then scrolling down, I've added in Verdana as the body text. So this one and the first one and the navigation are the ones that you're going to be most concerned about. So this is going to be how does the font appear, and then the two up here is what navigation appears, and then what are all of your titles. The rest of them you'll want to fill in too, but you won't see those as frequently as those three. Copied SP scheme font file to my SP font. So now I have the Protiviti colors and I have my font with Protiviti font. Now I can go back to SharePoint. Now the easiest way to do that, create a new item, but it's already in here. I'm a big fan of copying things to match. First, we need to get our file. They're still on. So what we're going to do is just copy this URL. You can see that the palette and the fonts are both in the same place. I'm not going to do an image because I'm going to be using the Seattle one that has the quick launch attached to it. So I'll just get the rest of this here. As you can see, or maybe not, I am using Office 365, so this will work both on-prem and on Office 365 just the same, except in this one you won't be able to get to some of these other navigational elements because they are kind of locked down more by a SharePoint master page. So when I go to the theme gallery, I've already uploaded my font. So here's my SP font, and I have uploaded my palette. Let's just do a sort. So here's my Protiviti color palette. So I have those two here. This one's just called Protiviti color palette and my font scheme. So now I can go back to my composed looks. And what you'll need to do here, it's a little bit annoying, but there's a title field, and the title field is required. And you won't be able to copy an item without the title field. So this is just a one-time project. I know I'm almost out of time, but we'll be finished here in just a moment. I'm going to add this title in. Let's put that in at the beginning and then say OK. So if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to copy the item because title was missing. And you can see here title and name are always the same. Okay, so now I'll edit the list, and now I'll copy one. Let's just copy wood and drag that down. So now I just update the parts that are different. So we'll call this Protiviti. I'm going to use the Seattle master, not the Oslo master. So Seattle's the one that has the quick launch. And put in my new color file, which is called Protiviti Color Palette. Did I spell palette right? Something tells me I didn't. P-A-L-E-T-T. Oh, I did, okay. I don't have an image, so I'm just going to clear that one out. And this one is my font scheme. Okay, and now the display order is where this is going to show up when you look at that design gallery. So since this is a custom one that I've done, I'm going to make this one up near the top, so I'm going to change that to 10, and now I have a new composed look. So let's go back to the home page. We can go to the gear this time, or you can go over here, but if that's gone, you can always say change the look. And here you can see I have the Protiviti theme. And the colors are a little bit different, and the font looks a little bit different, although it's hard to see when it's that small. Here you can see the different fonts. There's a serif font. Here's my Century font and my different colors that I had from the SP Color tool. So it looks very similar. And then I'll just apply it. Sometimes this takes a moment, but what's nice about the theme is I can then go ahead and save the site as a template so that all new sites that are created will use my theme, horrible as it is, so for better or worse. But you know, with some finessing, you can get it looking really good, and then you could always use a custom master page. So let's go back to the presentation. So what are some pros and cons of this approach? Some pros, it's really quick. You don't need a front-end developer. If you can work your way through a little bit of XML, assuming you even want to use custom fonts, you'll be in good shape. You can use this with publishing sites. So you can change the look. If you do have a site where publishing is enabled and you save that as a template, then whatever the theme is that you're using will be available when publishing is turned on. You can also use a custom master page with your own custom CSS. So I did not show you that. That would be for a 300 on Thursday and maybe a 3,000 on Thursday, but you're certainly welcome to use your own master pages. The con of this is it's a little bit difficult to change. You have to go in and then change the SP color file or change the SP font file or change the master page itself. And then worse than that is it's impossible to propagate it. So if you've changed the theme within one site, the only way you could propagate that is if you update your theme to point to a single source of truth within the root, let's say, if you use an absolute URL. But there's no magic button that you could push that theme throughout others if those URLs are not the same. The SP Color is version 1, and as you can see, if you don't know exactly what it is that you're trying to change is called, then you'll have to try to figure it out. I didn't talk about this one, and I'm a little out of time, but if you are using a custom master page, then you have to create a custom .preview file, which is what you see when you do that change the look, and you see those little snapshots like I did with the Protiviti one, and those are surprisingly tricky to make, and if you don't have one, then your theme won't show up and no one can select it. Also, you can use the custom master page, but in addition to the .preview file, it can be a little bit tricky. I do have a link here for the .preview that you can go to the MSDN page on how to create that. So that was a lot of material. If you have specific questions that you would like me to answer, anything that you would like to see again, I am around. I don't have anything to go to right now, so I'd love to entertain your questions. And thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully you learned something new. I'll give it back to Julia.
Great, thanks. We do have a couple questions. First, does this work in SharePoint 2010?
No, it does not. So the way that the themes have been created in SharePoint 2013, this method will only work for 2013. You can do something similar for 2010, but not this method with the SP color files and the SP font files. And I have a strong feeling that this will also not work in SharePoint 2016. So don't make a career out of it.
Okay, great. The next question is, does anything break if you create the site with publishing turned on and then turn off publishing in order to create a template?
No. That used to happen a lot with SharePoint. If you are using a custom master page, then you might see some odd behavior. The only thing that I've had in the past that's broken is sometimes links, but I've done that almost for every single project that I've worked on at some point. You have to turn publishing on, you have to turn publishing off, and surprisingly there's usually little to nothing, most of the time nothing, that will happen. And if you create a test site like I've done here, then you can do your theme in one site and then create that as a template, and there's no content in here, so there wouldn't be anything that would break. So feel free to go ahead and turn publishing on and do your theme and then turn it off, but I would recommend that you do that in a site, create a new site just for that purpose.
Okay, great. And someone asked a question, and I don't know if you can answer it simply or in time, but someone did ask if we were going to talk about how to change the top navigation to horizontal for the second level. I didn't know if we would have had time to explain that or not.
Top navigation to horizontal for the second level. I'm not sure I understand that question.
Okay.
If somebody gives, whoever asked that, if you could give some clarification. If you're talking about how navigation displays as a generic answer, that's going to be defined in the master page. So you would need a custom master page, which is really going to be the CSS that master page is linked to, and then you can make the navigation display however you like. But that's at the master page level.
Okay, and can you use this with any master page? Or can you use any master page with this?
Sort of. You can use a custom master page, but it might take more time than it's worth to get a custom theme with a custom master page, especially if it's responsive. We've found that to be a little bit difficult. You're perfectly fine to apply a master page to a site. If you have publishing turned on, you don't need to do this method at all. But why this method is helpful is if your users are not having publishing, they're creating team sites, they're creating project sites, and you want to have a theme available for them, then this is a great use of the theme. If you have an intranet or internet site and you have publishing enabled, then you don't need to use this method and you can have your own master page. You would have to put the master page in as through the, I'll show you quickly here. When you have this master page, let's say Design Manager, so you go to the Design Manager and go to Edit Master Pages. And your master pages will show up here. If it says conversion successful, then you should have no problem using it within your theme. And then if you get warnings and errors, it will explain to you exactly why. So I've got some form tags in here that I need to fix. So it's definitely possible. It just might be a little bit time consuming.
Okay, great. We've definitely gone over the top of the hour, so I just wanted to thank Brittany for presenting today. It was a great presentation. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We will be back in 2 weeks where we will be talking about a SharePoint audit. Thank you all for attending today, and have a great day.
Thank you.